Welcome to another week of Tailrace, where we're having a conversation as we just try to figure out this thing called life. And this week we've got Liz filling in for Shaz.
Hey.
It's good to see you again.
It's good to be here.
And we've got the wonderful, magnificent Michael Harvey. Woo!
Thanks, Jono.
It's good to have you here. So
I'm here. See the space.
It's an amazing space, isn't it?
Yeah, it's awesome.
For those people at home that don't know you, I'm privileged in that I get to serve with your son every week at youth group. And gee, he's funny. He's an absolute riot.
Yeah, no, the Freddie Mercury, or Freddie Mercury still makes me laugh.
He's an absolute legend. He cracks me up. Yeah. So we expect plenty of jokes from you today, mate.
I'm not as funny as him. Remember, I'm an accountant.
This might be your moment to shine.
Oh, okay. Psych myself up, don't I?
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know you that are watching this from home, so you're an accountant?
Yep.
Do you want to share a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I've got my own accounting business. Had that for about 15 years now.
Yeah.
And pretty much really boring repertoire. I wanted to be an accountant when I was in grade 8 or 9 at high school, and here I am, whatever it is, 30 odd years later, and still enjoying it.
Just living the dream.
I am.
Perfect, eh? Awesome.
It's pretty good.
It is pretty good. So we're coming up to this part in Matthew as we've been following along this talk that Jesus gave to the crowds that were following him, which is pretty outrageous because he redefines love as something totally different from the way the world sort of describes love. And he comes up to this part at the beginning of Matthew 6, and that's the bit that we're going to be talking about today. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one. But how about I just read out this chunk and then open question of just what stands out to you? What do you think it means? How about that? So Jesus says this at the start of Matthew 6. He says, "Be careful not to do your acts of righteousness before men to be seen by them. If you do, you'll have no reward from your Father in heaven. So when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and the streets, to be honoured by men. I tell you the truth, they have received their reward in full. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be done in secret. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." Pretty crazy. What do you think?
Very crazy.
First reactions? What do you think?
I just like the way Jesus keeps it pretty simple and takes out the froth and bubble from what goes on in life.
Yeah.
And just, to me, the whole point was just, at the end of the day, give to the needy and just get on with it rather than, trying to go through a ceremony or trying to make a show. So
Perfect.
Yeah.
Sums it up beautifully, and with that we can probably just close.
Yeah.
But it's spot on though, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's that motivation that's behind it. Like, it's so easy to sort of go, oh, I should do this or I shouldn't do that. Or, even when it comes to such a thing as giving to others. But what is the motivation that we've got going on behind it? Is it about what people can see, what people think of it? Or is it about why we're doing it? Is it about a revelation of going, God loved me this much, so I want to give back?
Yeah.
Or, what's our motivation behind it? And today in social media, you see so many people who appear to be so generous, but what's the integrity issue that's going on underneath? Do they really care, or is it about themselves rather than the poor?
Yeah, that's great.
Needy.
Yeah, you're right, because Jesus is really drawing it back to the motive as opposed to the action, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yet again.
Yeah.
He's sort of saying it's more important what's inside the heart and the reasons why as opposed to what you do with your hands.
Yeah.
Not that you shouldn't do things with your hands in this case. It's the giving.
Yeah, it's still got some practical elements to go and do something about it.
Absolutely. So Michael, how do you live this one out? Like, what does that mean in your day to day?
So I'm probably in a very fortunate position, I suppose, working for myself, that I'd have some opportunity to pass on, time, talent, and treasures to others in what I do in my daily life, or my life in general. So, I mean, strip it back, you go, well, okay, what's this fellow Jesus on about? And to me, later on, I think someone asked him what the 2 greatest commandments are. Love God with all your heart, soul and mind. Love your neighbour as yourself. Yep. So I just keep stripping that back to that basic principles, those basic commandments about, as you have opportunity, do good to your fellow person, fellow man. Yeah. Those sort of general principles. Yeah. Apply in my life. And because I am in business, then I do, as I said, do have opportunity, whether it's clients, staff, profits from the business to reinvest back into others' lives.
Is that something that you started when you first went into business, or is that something that's been a growing understanding?
No, I started out to make my millions. Like your son, I hear.
Apparently.
No, my plan A was to retire when I was 50. So I'm 52 now, and plan A hasn't been achieved. Okay. But probably along that journey, what's happened. So Tim from church, he had a publication about church in the marketplace that had a strong impact on me. That it was about rather than an or, it was an and type of philosophy to say, well, rather than just saying, okay, plan A was to make some wealth and then maybe sow back into community work later in life. That was sort of the rough game plan. So it was like, oh, hold on, you're in this position now. You've got an opportunity of having a business in the marketplace. Why can't you, utilise those opportunities now to help out others on the way?
How has that, I guess, invested into your business as well? Because so often when you give, there's always something that comes back. Like we can say we can be altruistic in giving, but the reality is whatever you give, we actually still receive. Has your business in being generous actually received back from that as well?
Yeah. I mean, rightly or wrongly, I sort of treat my business as being in partnership with God.
Yep.
So, it's I strive to maintain it along sort of godly principles. And so probably the initial example that sprung to mind, and it's probably not necessarily a Christian principle or a Christian sort of directive. One of my early sort of business mentors who was running his own accounting business said, there's an opportunity for working mums because the rest of the industry's not recognising that. They're sort of trained up, great performance, go and have some children and then you never hear from them.
Okay.
So that was sort of a great little tip. So that sort of set a foundation stone. Most of my early employees were working mums, and so their number one rule was family comes first. So it was a pain in the neck at school holidays because I was the last one in the office and had to do all the work. But you just work through it and work around it.
Yeah.
And I suppose the blessing comes now as their kids are older. My business has grown, their availability has increased. So, I'm getting a valued employee with more hours and input and flexibility. So that's, I suppose, an example of sowing early and then sort of getting benefits down the track.
Yeah. So do you feel that investing in them in that way has actually created a culture in your business that is generous from the very beginning?
Yeah. We've sort of been reflecting in the last sort of year or so what are some of the values of the business, because it's grown to the number of people involved in the last sort of couple of years, and staff connection is sort of a very strong value still, that they sort of feel connected to the work we do, connected to the clients. So we sort of have, it's a marketing buzzword of maximising potential, but we've reflected on it. Is that just a marketing word, or is it opportunity? If John rocks in off the street as a potential client, then we want to help him get the best out of himself, and probably more in a financial sense, but just work with that person. So we client level, staff level, and stuff like that. So try and grow it that way.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is cool.
It's really good.
Yeah.
I'm going to set you up with this next question, mate. So I know you as being one of the most generous, good stewards of time, talent, treasure that I know. And so I don't mean that to embarrass you, that's just the reality of it. Yeah. So cop that.
All right. I'll take it as a thank you and compliment.
But the thing is that I think in our world, there are lots of people that are generous. But a lot of the time people are happy to say give, but they want their name attached to it. So they're happy to give to a program but they want their brand to go with it. Or they're happy to give money to the university for that next building, but they want to make sure that their name's on that building. They're not happy to give to the maintenance program or to the ongoing costs or the behind the scenes sort of stuff. But yet I look at you and I see you're on umpteen boards and working groups around this city to be able to create healthier communities in the country. And I know that through your network that you help support so many programs and this sort of stuff. Like, what's that like trying to do it in the shadows as opposed to trying to draw this recognition to you? Like, is there ever that pang of going, oh, if only people knew how much it cost me?
I mean, I'd be lying if I said it never had those moments.
Yeah.
I probably have Jenny, my wife, to thank me about sort of overcoming those moments because, you know, my brain defaults to sort of, I suppose, business thinking, which is, you know, what's return on investment type of approach. And so sometimes you do sort of stand back and go, okay, I've spent lots of time on this particular project or board or whatever.
Yeah.
Am I really getting a return?
Yeah.
But the business brain still can be utilised to say, well, that return can come in a number of different ways.
Yeah.
So it's probably just not just a financial return of you know, sponsoring a program where your logo gets splashed around.
Yeah.
You know, where it's appropriate, I still take the opportunity. Like down the soccer club, I'll put up my banner and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Take the opportunity get a bit of reward. But yeah, it's not my primary motivation.
Yeah. So is your primary motivation just to steward like you've got an understanding that all that you've got is from God, I assume. Like that's the principle of stewardship. So your motivation is to steward that well and please the Father in heaven as opposed to gaining recognition for yourself. Yeah. Is that fair?
Yep.
To a degree?
I think it is fair. Hopefully it is fair.
Well, we're all human, aren't we?
Yeah. That's what you're striving for.
Yeah, strive for.
Yeah. Like we're still all human, so we do want people to think that we're nice people.
Yeah.
Like there's a reality in that.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
So,
like we all know that MDH is a good man. Yeah. Like, you know.
And I suppose it is a mix of time, talent and treasure. That's
of course.
Where Jenny's been good that she said often it's much easier to just cut a check and just give it to whatever cause you sort of want to give it to, and rather than actually putting either direct time or a combination of both sometimes where it's some form of financial assistance but also a bit out of your day or out of your week to go and help out in what you can in terms of strengths you're going to give to that organisation.
That's good.
Do you ever think of the reward that comes after this life?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
Just leave that on the horizon.
I mean,
so is eternity a reality?
Is what? Sorry?
Eternity a reality?
I don't know. It's not my primary sort of
not your focus. Yeah.
To me, it's stripping it back as the sort of words Jono read out. It's Father in heaven knows all this. So what we will be in that space. Yeah. It's a bit more of the here and now. Yeah. What you can impact.
Yeah. So be generous in what you've given.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. Rather than say hoarding and then bequeathing money in a will. You say, okay.
Yeah. I love that saying of, to whom much has been given, there's much responsibility that goes with that, that it's not about that, I've been given much, so I've got a lot. It's actually what you do with that, that lot. And I mean, living in a Western world and living in the beauty of Tasmania in this season when most of the world is gone a little bit crazy, like there's so much that we've been given that we can be generous with. Yeah. Is there anything that you would, I guess, recommend to people who are a little bit younger than you? What did you say you were, sort of late?
52.
21. If people were, say, is starting out either in their own business or starting out in work or in some sort of paid employment or whatever, is there a way that we could, I guess, teach the next generations to be generous in what they do? Have you got any tips for people?
It's tips from where I stand today, knowing that I didn't follow this.
That's it. It's wisdom and hindsight.
The reality of when say you get married, you got a home and the young kids, then
it's crazy.
It's crazy times. To give extra in terms of time when you got young kids or whatever it might be, it's pretty hard yards.
Yeah.
But I suppose to have that at the back of your mind that life's more about, when I look back now, you go, well, you can keep going down a certain path of accumulating wealth. That's probably the the great thing where we are, where Jenny and I are today, that, you know, we live a fairly comfortable Western life with a comfortable house, etc. So you can going, okay, I'll get a bigger house or a better house or whatever. Or you can say, oh, let's start broadening our sort of opportunities to bless others or help others. So it's probably an attitude rather than, you know, a formula to say, you should give X percent of your
Which I think
time.
is what Jesus is talking about in that, isn't it? That it's that attitude behind of what's going on. You're in the much younger category. How do you and Eri practice generosity? Because you guys are very generous people too.
So Erica's very generous, which is hilarious because she also likes really nice things. So she gets confused. No, I'm kidding. But I think it's like what Michael's talking about, like it's caught, not taught a lot of the time, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you were talking about passing on an attitude around wealth and finances and time and talent and that sort of thing. And I think it's the same sort of thing that you're talking about, Liz. I see the same thing in the kids that you've raised. Like they're all wonderfully generous human beings as well.
Yeah.
It's that, and I think a lot of it comes back to an understanding around what's really important in life.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you look at, say, Georgina, our oldest child, and she's doing an internship at church in Melbourne, and I look at that I go, oh, gee, I'd want to work there 2 days a week and get the cash. You know, that'd be my sort of approach. But she said, no, that's where she's at in life. And then, last night, Jack was going out to St Leonard's Primary to help out with the music program there, and we're stuffing music sheets into these little folders that he's doing. I go, you're just doing that? He said, yeah, I'm just going to help out. And you go, okay, well, that's some good examples that, you know.
Because sometimes you don't have the cash to do anything with, but you might have
you got a bit of
couple of hours spare.
Know. That's right.
You know?
Yeah. So that's another way to doing it that way. Yeah.
Well, you've both got kids that are very generous. Like truly, like having grown up.
You
with
could
both
have
of
some
them.
too.
Let's calm down. Let's move the coffee. No, I'm kidding. So the next question I've got for you though is there seems to be this general theme through what Jesus is talking about here, and it's about what your motive is and what you're drawn towards. Like as I read this, he seems to be talking about the warning about being drawn to the recognition from other men as opposed to just allowing God only to know what you're doing. So like the specific example he uses here, he uses this word hypocrite, which actually in the day had this connotation for like actors and this sort of thing. And in the local region where Jesus was, there were a lot of theatres, but there was one particular theatre which had recently been built as he was a child, and there's every chance that both he and his dad worked on that theatre. And so what would happen is that in the streets, whenever one of the religious rulers would go and give to the poor or do some sort of, you know, nice sort of token gesture, they'd literally blow a trumpet. So that the whole crowd, everybody in the marketplace would stop and gather around to see what, you know, generous act had just been done. So Jesus was pointing to these people and basically just calling them actors. Does that make sense? Like he was drawing a parallel between the theatre and what their generosity was really doing. And so Jesus was sort of making this point about how don't be doing it on show so that everyone can see because it's actually false. Instead, do it in the quiet, in the dark, where there's the impact of it, but you might not get the recognition. So as I read that, I sort of think that Jesus is warning us against a certain way of life because it can't be good for our well-being and our soul. So I guess my open-ended question to all of you guys is, what do you see around that? Like as you look at the world around you and as you look at people that do sort of make a big song and dance about to make sure they get the recognition, is that healthy for them? Like why is it that Jesus is warning us so strongly against it? What do you guys think?
I suppose I'm sort of hesitant because I sort of have this thought in my head that for better or for worse, if money goes to a good cause, then
it's still a good thing.
Absolutely.
So you know, you get like some of those fundraising functions you get invited to and you go along, you sort of go, whoa, it's pretty over the top.
Yeah.
You know,
it's still a good thing.
They're there for a good time and then makes money along the way.
Yeah.
I suppose you're just stripping it back to the heart principles, and that's probably a theme of Jesus all the way through. Is, you know, there were lots of processes or ceremonies or whatever that they had to go through.
Yeah.
In the day, like Judaism or Jewish society or the Roman occupation. So he's just trying to cut through all that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
What's similar to today? Well, because I'm on social media, I can bag social media out. that sometimes, it's part of the reason probably why I don't go on it. That you do get some activity that is not genuine.
Yeah.
And I just try and cut that noise out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I suppose if I was to say what, for me, I've just decided to cut that out, but for others, it's just filtering that to say, well, okay, I can filter that noise out. Like my kids can filter it out and just, as far as I know, and just pick out the good stuff and still stay connected.
Yeah. So what you're talking about there is you're talking about a guarding of your own heart. That's what I'm hearing from you.
It can influence. If someone says, you know, Jono, you're a bad person.
Yeah.
You know, some of us will go, oh, really? I didn't do that. You know, I didn't know that. Whereas others go, well, that's just from, you know, an unknown source, so don't worry about it. But you can be cut to the heart with with sort of activity or sort of dialogue that goes on around you and involved. So that's good. That's what I sort of think about it.
That makes total sense, Michael. What about you, Liz?
Well, I think there's an integrity that comes with it. Sure. That if you are generous, and the reason that you're generous is because of if you put in Instagram words, the likes that you get for it.
Yeah.
Then there's something I think that goes on in your soul that you then chase that.
Yes.
You chase that thing, and it becomes not about the actual thing that you're doing, the good thing for it actually is all about you. And so you will get reward here and now. But I think one of the questions I asked Michael before was about eternity, and eternity for me is highly important because I know that life goes on for longer than this earth. For me, it is, there's this long process that I get to spend a long time with God in eternity. Don't know what that looks like yet or what that is, but there's something about doing things that are about caring for my soul, caring for my heart, but also others people's hearts and doing what God wants. So there's this eternity issue of going, well, I can get all the reward here and do all that, but do I need that now, or am I happy to wait for God to sort of go, well done, good and faithful servant? And not that you're doing the good stuff just for that either, but there's that thing of going, I want God's heart to be reflected in my giving and doing what he wants. So I think there's this, I'm probably mashing it all together, but there's this integrity that goes, if I'm only giving for the response that I get from somebody, am I doing it for the right reasons? And am I actually helping the person who needs it, or am I actually not actually helping?
Yeah.
Like there was cases in, say, some of the causes that might give Christmas gifts to kids, and they've actually found that some of the things that come from the West to some of those poorer countries actually aren't helpful. They create a different type of dependency because it's this sort of almost this lording over it, and they need our kindness and we need to do this. But there were other ways that could give that would actually impact the child in a more positive way. So I think sometimes we go, let's give, and it's for the wrong reasons and it gives the wrong response.
No, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me. That's good.
I'm intrigued with your eternity sort of perspective. It's something I haven't thought a lot about.
Yeah. I just, I guess I've had a lot of thoughts lately about what happens after we die. We had a young gentleman who died recently, and what does it mean for eternity, and what happens after this earth? Because it's such a short period of time that we're on this earth. Like for me, I'm like, there's got to be more. Yeah. There's got to be more than the 70, 80, 90 years, getting closer to 70. So hopefully it's a bit longer than that. But, you know, what is it after death? What is that stuff that's after death? And do the things that we do here on earth actually impact those moments that happen after death? Is that, or is it just fully self-contained? My hope and my strong belief is that there's stuff that goes on after that 70, 80 years. Yeah.
I believe that something happens after that, but doesn't occupy much of my time.
No.
It's just different approach.
And I think there's the building into the soul that is more than just this time frame. I think our soul goes on forever. So the things that we build into our soul, including generosity, I think will last for an eternity.
It's powerful words. It's part of the great mystery of faith, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
We might start to bring this conversation to a close. Do either of you guys have any last words or any final bits of advice or encouragement for our viewers at home?
I would just encourage people to practice generosity.
Yeah.
I think it's a really powerful thing that actually changes our mental health and our well-being. And it's one of those sort of mysterious things that you can't actually put an equation on it. Accountants, you know, we do love an equation and a good Excel spreadsheet and see how that all works. But, you know, I think it does something to us internally if we realise that we actually have something that we can give back. Yeah. I've heard so many stories of people who are in almost desperate poverty, but they can give something back, and it actually does something to them, and it does build into you whatever situation you're in. So whether you've got a little or a lot, you can be generous in some form. And I think it's really good for your well-being and for the greater community and for, and if you can do it when you've got not much, then don't wait until you've got a lot, because it won't happen. You've got to start with the little, whether it's having someone sleep on your couch or it's someone, a meal. You can always divide a meal for 4 into 6. It's not that difficult. So yeah,
you're right there. That's just reflecting back where I started just explaining what the change of mentality after I started working for myself is it was pretty much that, create the wealth and give some of it away sort of thing. But the reality is, it's an insatiable appetite to feed. Where does it end? And you go, that couch.
How much is enough?
I might need another couch. And I was talking to my father-in-law on the weekends, like people just throwing out electrical items because in COVID they just wanted a new colour or a new fridge, whatever. So it's an insatiable appetite you never fulfil.
Yeah.
So what sort of advice? Just strip it back. There'll be plenty of people to help out. Our approach in our family has been probably more local than overseas. It's just the way that we've approached it. So we try and help out sort of local people. And if for people like myself, instead of in business or got some disposable income, the other thing I've tried to do is back the individuals rather than necessarily a program.
It's great advice.
Take what you guys are doing down the Lonnie Footy Club with the chaplaincy program. To me, it's more about you and Caleb and the amount of quality of the people delivering that and what sort of you're doing there, not necessarily, before then I sort of a few years back sort of investigated a program that was run nationally for other sporting groups, and you try and bring it down here, but it's still a program. I mean, it's the individuals at the end of the day that are having one-on-one conversations and trying to help people out.
Yeah.
And so,
and the programs can change.
Yeah.
But if you've invested into the person, you know that person's going to do it in another way.
Yeah. And that could be either financial or just walking beside people to give people encouragement and help out that way.
Yeah. Great.
Great words, Michael. Thank you.
No worries.
Well, we might leave it here, but do you reckon you could pray for all of our viewers at home?
Yep. And I just might also pray for the guys in lockdown in Melbourne, Victoria as well. That's been on my heart today.
For them.
Yep.
Yes, dear Lord, thank you for the conversation we've been able to have today and for the work that Jono does in facilitating it. And just pray for the words of Jesus to sort of penetrate people's lives and just to try and keep it simple in the way that we try and live our life and follow the principles that Jesus outlined in the Bible for us. And also just ask you to be with those people doing it tough in Melbourne, Victoria at the moment with lockdown, and just pray for peace to stay in their hearts and to get through this period and to lean into you as well, Lord. And we pray for that through Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you both.
Thanks, Jono.
Thanks, Jono. Thanks, Liz.